Thank you and welcome to the Migros Museum. My name is Michael Birchall. I'm the curator here and of the exhibition Resonant Frequencies. Welcome to everybody joining us from home on the live stream. This evening we're also launching the catalogue, which has just been published today, hot off the press. So if you're in the building, then please purchase one in the shop. And I'd also like to thank my colleagues for organizing this event, especially Tasneem Baghdadi, Lucas Hagen, and Marcus Bosch, as well as the rest of the technical team. And it's wonderful to welcome Evan and Hannah into the space. Dr. Hannah Catherine Jones is a London-based artist, scholar, multi-instrumentalist, broadcaster, and DJ, composer, conductor, and founder of Peckham Chamber Orchestra, a community project established in 2013. Evan Ifekoya lives and works in London. Their work in sound and text is an extension of their calling as a spiritual practitioner. Both Evan and Hannah have previously collaborated on the collaborative sound work Exercises for Limitless Potential, HELP, at Gasworks London and at the Yemen Biennial, and appear together in the podcast series Conversations on Bliss, where they discuss their shared concerns with the healing potential of sound and how through attunement to certain frequencies, we have the potential to heal and transform the body on a cellular level. I'm delighted to welcome them both here, and I really look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for the introduction.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us. Yeah, just acclimatizing to this moment in your show, plus, cameras. Hello, everyone at home. Just going to get that out of the way.
Hi.
Because the cameras are a very strong presence.
Yes.
In this space that you have created, which I only encountered for the first time yesterday, and I've spent about an hour and a half, although time did something strange when I was in the space, which I believe was your intention. It's quite hard to sort of put into words. I am aware that maybe people haven't spent time with the show, especially the presence of this live stream. But what I experienced was hard to put into words. It was a multi-layered experience. It was, and it is, a space I want to dwell in, a space that I want to spend more time in, and a space that sort of feels like I can visit different parts of my body, my history. It does so much stuff to the layers of consciousness. And that's something that is reflected, pun intended, in this space that we find ourselves in right now. So yes, thank you for creating this space that I feel like myself and so many others want to dwell in. Yeah, I'm not really sure. It's not really like a question-answer kind of scenario in my mind, but I will try and ask a question in saying, yeah, how did you begin to sort of put this amazing experience together?
Yeah, where to begin? I'm going to begin by actually reflecting on the word dwelling that you used, because, yeah, that really resonates for me, again, no pun intended. But, yeah, there was definitely something, and there is something, I think, for me, because it's a present and past in terms of the planning. But, when I think about creating art environments, so be that exhibitions, performances, moving image, all the different ways that I work, I am thinking, how do I create an environment that encourages a certain kind of feeling within the body, and that in the immediate is a feeling of Of relaxation, to a certain degree, yes, but also a kind of surrendering of something, a letting go of something, so that one might arrive and allow something else to kind of fill that new space.
Or rise to the top.
Exactly,
sort of thing.
because, you know, ultimately, what I'm actually, I'm not trying to put anything in, I'm just trying to make space for what is already within ourselves. You know, I'm trying through these different, because we are here in an environment called the Welcome, but there's 5 different kind of portal units which each offer and open up different things, and we will, you know, get to that. But you know, in the immediate, it's like how to create this kind of something through which a kind of letting go and a spaciousness might emerge.
And from the way that we enter, so when you enter, you kind of get sprayed or like blessed, it feels like, with a scent that you've made, right?
Yes.
And I mean, my nose is not exactly, you know, the most, I can't detect everything, but it feels like there's lavender, there's something more earthy in there that I wouldn't dare to guess, but there's this, it's almost like, you know, every element's been thought of, from the sense of smell to when you come in, you take your shoes off to kind of meet the ground. So you're really engaging in the space and we were chatting about this earlier, like the way that we enter a lot of places of spiritual activity, let's say, of worship, of higher powers, there's a lot of water. And the way that the scent has hit me differently. Today it was like, psh, and I was like, yes, come on, scent. Like, I liked the feeling of that. And then obviously this little body of water here. So it feels like I'm being taken really good care of in the space. And I know that, you know, healing is really so much to do with care, how much we care for ourselves and for others. I guess I'm kind of getting on to sort of opening up about the kinds of healing practices that we do on the daily, and then how some of these have been like, I don't even want to use the word like necessarily elevated, but certainly like pinpointed, specified. Like, for example, I'm thinking of the sun, the circle above?
The central sun.
The central sun. And then there are this kind of double mattress with vibrating heated pads. So you're essentially sunbathing. And we haven't even begun to talk about the sound. But that room for me was like replicating something that is of the utmost kind of care that I would give to myself, the opportunity to go and sunbathe, and also to bathe in sound. But more than that, to kind of go into myself. Do you know what I mean? There's this kind of interiority, exteriority throughout the whole show. But I'm not really asking questions. I'm kind of just rambling.
I mean, there's lots I could say in response to that, because you're talking about two of there's 2 different portal units you're referring to there, which kind of face each other. And yeah, there's many different things I was thinking about in kind of conceptualizing the space and the movement of energy. But, you know, one thing I was thinking about was actually something Octavia Butler had said about how there's nothing new under the sun, but there are new suns, you know, there are more suns. You know, so I was also thinking about this idea of there being like multiple suns that coexist, you know, and so yeah, there's this kind of this anchor point sun, but then there are these other kind of, I also think of them as kind of suns that kind of constellate, you know, or that kind of move around the space kind of simultaneously. And so that was for me, that was kind of yeah, like a kind of a way of organizing the space, I would say. Like I hadn't really thought about it as this idea of sunbathing or bathing in sound, but yeah, I mean, there was also that too, because there is, I was definitely thinking about, the passage of time within the show, the fact that, because of the way that the space is set up, it does, you get this sense of time moving, because when you arrive at midday, it's brighter, and then you come now and it's kind of darker, it's more subdued.
Because of the windows we have behind us.
Because of the windows, but then also the vibration, the space with the mats, the light does change there as well. It does kind of move from a brighter point to a darker, kind of more blue. So you have this idea of, sunlight to sun dark. So yeah, I was definitely thinking about temporality and time, but also about it collapsing, rather than it being like a linear thing, more about kind of multiple kind of modes and registers of time kind of existing kind of simultaneously.
There is definitely a timelessness, as it were, and in terms as well as, because I spent, so the whole sound work that is within this space totals 7 hours, is that right? Mm-hmm. So me only spending about an hour and a half yesterday, I haven't, scraped the surface of what else is there, but I did notice there were a couple of things that, motifs that came back round, which was really sort of comforting and sort of reflects this way that when we're trying to sort of go through these practices of meditation and going inwards, you have to repeat the exercises. It has to become part of this practice of going to that space within yourself. So I was noticing on the central sort of speaker with the circles of sound, it feels like, I don't really know how to describe it. What's the title of that one? I should know.
It's called the Central Sun.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Okay. So the sounds and the exercises, that's what I kind of want to refer to them, where it's like, think of a sound, repeat the sound. How does that feel? You're asking us questions, and you're also giving us so much like information as well, which doesn't feel like, how can I describe it? It's sort of like very sort of gently and ambiently delivered as part of a lot of things that can actually help us. Do you know what I mean? It's like these exercises that can help us, and I feel like you're sharing a lot of how you your relationship with sound on a day-to-day, which is a big thing, the way that we think about our bodies in relation to sound, and understand this thing, which is the air moving per second. That's what frequency is. So, and then how that interacts in our bodies. And I'm going back to the blue room with the sun and the vibrations, because what was so kind of profound about that for me is what it felt like after I pressed it off. There was this moment where it was like, its absence was almost shocking, because of how you didn't realize how much tension you held in your body before you laid on it. And then when it was gone, it was like, wow, that's back to my normal, I'm exaggerating, the shoulders up gesture of tension. But I'm not very good at asking questions. But it's conversation, right?
Yeah, it's a back and forth, and I'm happy to, because something I do want to pick up on is, what you said about, this feeling of these being, things that I do as part of my life, which is very much what the show is composed of. The fact that the structures are octagons. I'm very interested in sacred geometry. There's a lot of aspects of sacred geometry in my home. I have it around because I am interested in what it kind of taps me into on like a kind of meditative and kind of, on on a kind of how it connects to a deeper layer of my consciousness that might not be, you know, immediately apparent. And so, you know, there's that. And yeah, with the sound, you know, it kind of moves through, again, different registers. But, you know, a lot of it's also things that I'm learning as I'm going along. It's not me, you know, it's funny, it's not even that it's me trying to teach. It's like, this is me demonstrating what I'm learning, you know, and that these are things that have been really supportive for me on my journey. You know, and I think that's also something that is very important for me to name, is that, you know, I don't, you know, this journey that I'm on is not about me positioning myself as a healer or, you know, as a guru or as a you know, as a specialist, but rather that, like, this is something that we can all engage in, you know, and this is me trying to kind of, you know, plant seeds, share tools that might in some way benefit or support others as well. Yeah. You know, it's really that for me. And yeah, they're all things that are very much things that I do on a regular basis. And, you know, even the fact that, yeah, you know, there are these references to water. You know, like water, again, is very much a part of my clearing, cleansing practice. So that's why I wanted to invite that into the space. And then, you know, going back to the mist, you know, and actually, you know, the entrance is something that I've attended to in my work for a number of years, actually. Like my last, I think since 2018, like at least all of my solo shows, there's been some kind of entrance, because I am really interested in, yeah, this idea of, like, you know, you're able to shed or leave something from where you were in arriving in a new space, you know, and that's something for me that, yeah, really connects me to, like, when I think of, like, sacred spaces, you know, that's what calls to mind for me, this idea of, like, somehow I'm leaving whatever I came in with behind, and I'm arriving, and something else is able to, yeah, rise up, you know, and that's also why, yeah, you know, there's the taking off of the shoes, and I think that does also, as well, encourage a different way of interacting, you know, with the environment. You know, I think it encourages, yeah, like a different way of being in the body when you're without shoes on.
And intentional, you know, taking off your shoes, especially the ones that I've been wearing. It's like, it takes a lot of, you know, I am doing this action, I am arriving. But there's so much to talk about. I guess, like, so many of the sounds, I want to talk about silence, right? Because we were chatting and I was asking you about some of the collaborative elements of the sound work, and there's a multitude of voices. There's a multitude of types of your own voice. You know, there's moments where you're speaking to us from a position of this bit is kind of how, like, meditative, and this bit is, again, like you're saying, you're sharing this information on your journey. That's what I was trying to get at earlier when it was like, it doesn't feel like an ambient kind of sharing of knowledge rather than I can't think of the right word, but someone sort of lecturing you. It doesn't feel like that, you know? So there are multiple kind of modes of your own voice, but then there are actually other people's voices as part of the show woven in this really kind of like, yeah, what feels very seamless, and there is dialogue. Yeah, maybe you could speak a little bit about the other voices, who you invited in, and how you communicated to them what it is you wanted to create as part of the soundscape.
Yes, okay. I mean, you know, I will contextualize by saying, again, you know, collaboration and working with others is a big part of what I do. And yeah, whenever I am invited to do a solo show, a show of just my own work, there is always an element of inviting people that I consider myself in community with. And so, you know, with this show, but it's always about, you know, yeah, things that I am am kind of witnessing and kind of seeing that are questions or concerns as well that are part of the collective, you know, and are part of the groups that I'm involved in. So I think I'm also, you know, there's always a, you know, to some degree, a desire to kind of, be in dialogue with my communities. And, you know, I think there are, you know, in lots of spaces, conversations about healing, you know, and about how we transform, our experiences, you know, our traumas, either, you know, lived or inherited. And, you know, with this show in particular, you know, there were a few different questions that so with this, it was, you know, I tried to do something different in that it wasn't necessarily people that I interacted with like day to day in London, but it was like people that I had either interacted with kind of on a one-off, like in a workshop, or, you know, it was people that I'd interacted with like from various parts of the world. But who I knew and could see and were witnessing were in some way in dialogue with sound as part of their contemplative practice. And that could be in terms of like nightlife, you know, or it could also be in terms of, like walking practices. You know, one of the collaborators, Rahima, has this really amazing practice around like walking and like recording walks. You know, one of them, you know, Chaos Clay is a DJ, but then also people who, you know, were also thinking about, deep listening practices, who were from different corners of the world. And so I kind of, wanted to think, you know, and then specifically artists who use their voice as well as part of their contemplative practice. And, so I asked them the questions I was asking myself about this idea of like, how do we find a resonant how do we find a frequency that feels resonant? You know, where is that for you? Like, where do you go to seek that out? And also, this idea of silence. You know, how do you, like, what sound does it make? Or like, what's the space around it? You know, because silence is never really silence, is it? You know, so I kind of had these two kind of central questions, and I invited them to respond in a way that worked for them. Like, I kept it really open because I was also simultaneously asking myself those questions as part of my own inquiry, you know, in terms of the work that I was making. And so, you know, a lot of it was just trusting that there would be a way of bringing everything together, which was then, you know, kind of the work that I was then doing as the work, you know, was in its final stages, and kind of really thinking about that dialogue. And I mean, somehow it came together.
I mean, it coming together, this idea of composition, which is something I always return to by thinking about what that word means. And it means somebody who puts together. And I think it's really, felt by me how far your intuition has played a role in how you brought this together. Because we've been chatting, and because I know, like, you know, there was a number of leaps of faith in terms of like how everything came together materially, spatially, and I guess and sonically. And you know, one of the things that I'm always thinking I had to say in my PhD is like intuition as methodology. It's a thing, you know. You have to kind of trust these urges that you can't quite like necessarily put into words or quantify, but that kind of give this, I don't know, there's a sense of like wonder and again, words not quite come into what the thing is that I'm trying to describe, but it feels like like it's a kind of coming together of, I mean, you've just described it, the way that you've brought together people from different sound worlds as we would separate them out in the late capitalist Western world as, you know, DJ or this or that. And I know you're not doing that, but I'm just kind of like trying to make a point about the way that we humans have always needed sonic ritual, how that how it takes different forms, how it comes back to us. And I'm also thinking about a trip that we took today, this morning, where we went to the Anna Kunz Museum, just about 30 minutes out of Zurich on the train, and we went to a cave. And I'm thinking about how when the, you know, academics, archaeologists, ologists, whoever they are, visit these caves and you see the cave paintings, and then like archaeoacousticians, is that a word? Google it. They come and they test, and they realize that the places where cave paintings have been put, across most of the caves where cave paintings have been found, is also the most sonically resonant place in the cave. So we know people will come in and gathering together to utilize that sonic reverberation. And again, I don't really do questions very well, but I just wanted to touch on this kind of space that you made, and especially the way that this sort of red clay that runs through the plinths, this stage, the curved seatings and those forms, there's something that is so elemental and very grounding about this space that I feel has only been emphasized through having gone on our little pilgrimage earlier today. So, intuition, sound, ritual, to summarize.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm somebody who is very much intuitively led in what I do, in the way that I work. But, you know, what I will say is that, you know, the practice for me has also been about really clarifying my intuition and making sure that I am a clear channel for the information, you know, for what I'm receiving. So that's what all the practices are really for, you know, to become a vessel for that. And, you know, so that what is coming through, I know I can trust. And, yeah, that was, and that is, you know, something that is very important to this show, like really reaffirming that there's a wisdom in intuition, you know, and that it can sit alongside the intellectual and the theoretical and, you know, all of that. And that there's a wisdom in our bodies, you know, and the kind of the embodied and, yeah, the ancestral ways of knowing. For me, yeah, they sit equally alongside the science, which is also, you know, there is parts of that in the work, and, you know, I do talk about that, and it is definitely part of my research, so I don't deny it, but for me, I don't privilege it over the stuff that, like, yeah, that I intuitively arrive at, you know, and actually, like, yeah, a lot of the, like, in terms of, like, how I was visioning the space, did arrive through, like, a kind of, like a drum journeying, or like a kind of a shamanic practice in a way where, yeah, I might drum, or I might be with somebody who's drumming, or, you know, I also, you know, I've done like various different kinds of, you know, kind of dreaming in like a wakeful state, you know, so that you can access, yeah, deeper aspects of your knowing. You can access, you know, what's called your like Akashic record, and, you know, which is like the hall of records, which is like where all knowledge lives. Yeah, we can all connect with that basically, and you know, so I was able, you know, I've been able to access A lot of what I kind of work with, and there's lots of different elements from the show which, like arrived in dreams, and also in past shows, a lot of my ideas actually do come through dreams, they're not kind of overly thought, and that's actually when I really struggle, when I need to like spend a lot of time thinking about things. It's like I don't really plan, there was no thinking about this conversation. It's like I need to let it arrive, because that's how I know it's the truth. If I'm overthinking it, then it's like, it's because maybe I heard that from somebody else, and it's like I need to know it's the truth, and I can only know if it's the truth if I haven't overthought it, and so, and that's a lot of the work that I do with other people, when I'm working and like holding space for others creatively. It's like, how do we kind of, access more of our intuition so we can become more authentically ourselves as practitioners, as artists, as, cultural workers, however we want to define ourselves.
And that process is really about like what feels right. It can't be much like the walk. So there's this kind of cave that is something that you enter into, but at the same time feels quite open. And there feels like an opening up. But it was called the energy walk, wasn't it? And there was stages where we could just, supposed to stop and kind of see how that moment feels for you. Does this feel right for you? And that is really what the kind of experiential research, or whatever you want to call it, with these so-called healing frequencies, which is going to be different for everyone, right? So different things, different frequencies are going to feel more kind of profound in one person than another, or maybe in whatever state of mind that you're in, but that's it, it's felt. And I don't think we have enough moments like that. And, that point we come on to like numbers, like the solfeggio frequencies and all that. But I also can't stop thinking about the body as a vessel, as an instrument. And we were talking earlier, you were talking about the chest cavity as the most resonating part of the body, simply because it's, we've got a rib cage, we've got a body, much like an instrument, like these calabash kind of instrument sculpture, painting, these little, how would I call them? They're characters. They're somewhere in between characters, objects, but they're this potential. They are resonating bodies. They have that space in them for the potential of, sound, vibrations. And I think that it's very effective, the way that you've sort of, every point feels like it's a reminder to, there's many ways in to and out of what of how we're trying to make space to feel what's right, to create that space for wisdom and intuition that we do, like you said, it's already inside of us. So, I guess I've gone all over the place there. Again.
But that kind of leads me back to, when you were talking about the vibration mats, because there are these different points within the exhibition, and this isn't on right now, but when the work is active, like this stage does vibrate, and so the water moves, and so there are these different spaces within the exhibition, where you can have this kind of physical dialogue or conversation with the effect of vibration on your physical body, and that was also something that I wanted to invite the audience to have a kind of a deeper or closer experience with, like something I really enjoy about this space is that people often, when they realize they can step on it, they will lie on it.
Yes.
And then you see the, the reflection of the ripples in the water. And yeah, that's like a really gorgeous moment for me, because it doesn't need to be spelled out. It's something that people will intuitively do, and the fact that, like, because of where the subwoofers are positioned, the walls of the portal unit vibrate as well, which, if you're really active and, like, feeling around, you'll notice, so it's not just lying on the mat where you experience vibration, which you can adjust to your own taste and desires, which is also, really an enjoyable part of it. And again, it's like, that kind of came from a place of, like, what kind of experience do I want to have in a gallery? And also, like, creating environments where people can be comfortable and can lie down, and also have this, like, where it's not just like a standing and, like, looking, it's not just that way, it's not just that perspective, but where you can lie down, or, like, there's more, it's more kind of like a contemplative, more spacious experience with art as like a spatial thing rather than just like an object, is something that I've been concerned with for some time. And this was an opportunity to really kind of expand on that. And I didn't even go into the Emma Kuntz experience today, but sacred, like, sacred spaces, like, I'm just somebody who likes to, I seek those out, spaces which, have historically been, it could just be like a stone carving, or, it could be, a quarry, cave, like with, the Emma Kuntz Museum. But it's like I seek these things out. I always want to find those spaces. Like, it's just something I want to be in dialogue with. The sites where ritual happened, where they're, reported to have, like, healing or transformative properties, or, it's like where people gathered, as a way of, like, transforming their everyday existence. There's something that I'm really excited about by those spaces, that I'm really energized by. And so I wanted to, create an environment that kind of, alluded to something like that. And I think also because, being in those spaces as well, like, there is a palpable vibration, and so that's kind of something I also wanted to really, like, bring into this space. It's my kind of version of that, like, within the context of art.
Definitely. And I thought just then, I was like, oh yeah, frequencies, it's that thing, it's how many vibrations in the air, but it's also rooted in a social context of gathering, like frequenting a place. I'm pretty sure I looked up the root of this word just to check, and there is that. So it has this twofold root of the sound, but also the coming together. So and in this day and age, the dance is so important, but so are other forms of and I really like this this way you're describing people's practices as contemplative. I can't even say it. Say it for me.
Contemplative.
Contemplative. Thank you. So I can't even say it. Contemplating stuff as part of your practice, that is really important. And there are many moments for that, including the dance, which can take you into interior. Like, of course it can. But trying to find these, we need a multiplicity of these moments. And that's kind of visiting these sort of structures where you can have this encounter, like the blue room with the ramp. I should know all the names of the works. I'm so sorry that I don't. Sorry, everyone. But it was like I died, but in a good way. Like, do you know what I mean? I definitely entered into a different kind of... it's like a representation of a different level of my consciousness that I was able to visit. And it did make me have that little moment of fear that you have when you give over control of your environment. to like this presence of light, and then the frame. But you have to exactly surrender, and we have to relearn that. We have to relearn that, and to be reminded of it on these. It's like, do I want to think of them as islands? I don't know, but it feels very much like I'm visiting not just a where, but a when. And I'm also thinking of the room with the two speakers, like just having that encounter with the presence of those speakers on their tripods. You know, it's like they're like eye level. It's like these speakers mean so much to me. And then we've got the vinyl, so it's almost like the dance, this and that. So I know that, there are these, little kind of pushes outside of the comfort zone or towards, again, these things that we don't necessarily have words for, but again, layers. Layers. It feels very sort of like the rocks, you know? Layers of when, of time, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so much to respond to, and the blue space is called the silent echo.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's I mean, color. You know, there are a few colors that are very central, I would say, you know, to the work. You know, very much this kind of earthy red, blue. You know, kind of deep indigo blue. Orange, you know, the sun, and also the instruments as well echo that, and of course the black of the rubber and the pellet drum. And yeah, I don't know why, but I want to go back to your point where you were talking about the instruments, because I mean, there's a lot of things I could respond to, but you know, okay, I mean, there's multiple things I want to respond to now, but, you know, because for me, there was also, you know, I had to surrender as part of this show, you know, because there was a lot that was unknown for me because of how much had to be constructed and fabricated, you know, so it was also a kind of like a not knowing of if, you know, what the kind of the craziness that was in here, whether it would translate, you know, whether it would even be physically possible, you know, to construct. And, you know, it's only thanks to the amazing team at Migros that it was able to come to life, you know, and, you know, for that I'm, you know, eternally grateful for. And yeah, so there was a lot of like moving through that for me, and actually the instruments were a really big part of how I was able to kind of creatively move through that challenging energy for me, because actually, you know, the constructing of instruments and the painting, you know, really connects me to a more kind of playful childhood aspect of myself, you know, which, felt really important to make visible in this exhibition. You know, like I didn't want it to just be this thing about, you know, because for me that is part of the journey of transforming and healing, is also being with that kind of more playful and childhood aspect, you know, and so finding opportunities for that. And that being visible was also a really important part of the show. And also, you know, in terms of like how they've been installed and, you know, displayed as well. You know, it's kind of like, you know, everything's a bit wonky and, you know, and it's kind of, yeah, for me, I don't know, it makes me laugh. Like, it kind of like
they are characters to me, absolutely.
And so I needed that lightness as well. You know, and it's funny because it hasn't really been picked up at all, but for me, that's like a really important part of the show. And that kind of jokey look at like, you know, museological ways of displaying things. Like, that's a really important part of this whole environment to me, you know, and, you know, and a lot of the materials as well are just, collected on journeys, you know, the cowrie shells, the twig, you know, just places that I visit, you know, if I feel called to, a certain bit of material, you know, I keep hold of things, and I like, being able to repurpose them in that way. And yeah, I mean the rubber room, just to go back to that, because again, like, I don't know, rubber's just always this thing that I kind of like to bring in that element of like a kind of a more like sensual environment, because for me, spirituality is also very much connected to sexuality. And so, yeah, it's kind of an allusion to that. And some of the sonic aspects, I would say, as well, really allude to that. But again, it's activated at certain points in the day. But yeah, I'll leave that there for now.
No, yeah, I mean, totally, the calabash, like the instruments, the drums, it reminds me as well that tool, instrument, and what we consider that to be, it's almost like they are the instrument, the tool to activate this sense of playfulness, childlike kind of joy, because it is, there's a lot of joy in being here, like I said, you've created a space that I think we want to dwell in, because it's not saying, oh, don't touch this and like stay off here, and saying welcome, like what's the word, recline. That's really important, and of course it makes us want to, you've created a space where people want to stay, so that we will then engage with this kind of monumental sound work that is sort of giving so much. And yeah, I wonder where the kind of boundaries lie on what comes in and then what kind of doesn't kind of go into the show, because I know so much goes into it. How do you decide what is next time, not now, or another work?
Okay. So I think we want to open up to questions soon, but I will say that I mean, there was a lot of distilling and trying to get to the essence of something, and there could have been 100 more things in this show, to be honest. But I think when I settled on the title, that is when I think things became a bit clearer for me about what to really focus on. I focused on 2 specific frequencies and then kind of let things emanate from there. Nice. And I think because the thing for me is that the works I do are always in dialogue with each other, so I don't actually worry too much about because there will always be a next. So I know there'll always be, there's always going to be more that can come later. But there's definitely a process of elimination that has to happen. But that's part of the curatorial. Yeah, it's intuition, definitely. But I would say it's also the curatorial conversation as well. But there could have been a lot of other. At one point, I was talking about like a bouncy castle and all these other types of things. But that could be the next one.
You heard it here first.
Okay. I mean, are we wanting to open to questions now?
Do you want to take this one?
Yeah.
So, any questions?
Stunned silence. Okay.
It's nice then how you ended with this idea of the bouncy castle. Do you think, though, in a way, if you work on the next exhibition, will you think increasingly about movement of visitors and how they experience space? Because it seems that you've been on a journey with your other exhibition in London, and here was the kind of an opportunity to realize an enormous space, which is about welcoming those people into the units. This isn't a regular sort of exhibition, as you were talking about earlier on.
Yeah. I mean, I think something that is happening with this space, this environment, is that aspects of the work are being activated, over the course of the exhibition. And so, I think this idea of creating, environments, creating containers where things can happen and unfold is something that I'm really excited about. Definitely, like where, there can be stillness, there can be pause, but there can also be a kind of, an unfolding, and actually something I didn't kind of really talk about, but, people are sitting on, there's also the seating, which again is kind of modular and invites this kind of coming together, so even though, there's very much these moments for a kind of individual experience, there's also, I'm also interested in like, how do we find ways for collectivizing this experience, that it's a work that actually we need to do together as well. So creating more environments where that can happen, in dialogue with people is, definitely, where it's kind of going, for sure.
Any more questions? Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I haven't seen your show yet, but you've been talking a lot about intuition and also about how it's a big part of your personal life. And I wondered what this means to you. How do you... I mean, everybody has to find this out themselves, but how do you connect to your intuition, and what does it mean to you? How does it feel like?
Yeah. I mean, that is a very good question. What does it feel like? And that is the work, getting really clear about that feeling and knowing when it is the true feeling. Like, because for me, when it's intuitive, like there's a calmness, there's a clarity, about what I'm experiencing. There's a harmony about it, and so internally there's a harmony. So there could be movement. It's not that it's always still, but there's a harmony in that movement. Whereas like when you're moving through, say, in a way that's more clouded or whatever, there's tension, so it's like it's how the knowing, there's no tension. I'm not holding in the knowing. Do you know what I mean? I'm not resisting, and so it's like, okay, how does it feel? Like, it's definitely something I feel on a muscular level as well. It's like, okay, is there like a tightness somewhere? Because then that's, exactly. It's physiological and it's somatic, as well as, it's outside of here, the mind. It's kind of more, as you said, like, how do you feel it? For me, it's like it's a feeling of a clarity pulsing through my body, I would say. I mean, let me know if you want to respond as well.
Hi, Evan. I would just want to ask you about water again. And as I saw many times, you have a really deep connection to water. And maybe you could elaborate a little bit about that. Because my own resonance to water is like when I was a little child, I loved to swim and felt like cozy. So I really want to hear your vision about water.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, on a fundamental level, being in water connects me to, a childhood, more like playful aspect of myself. And so there's that, but also, there's a real kind of, a clearing and a cleansing feeling that I get from being in water and being around water, like even just being by the sea, being by a body of natural water, there's a feeling of clarity. And, you know, there's also, what it's meant, what it means, you know, ancestrally, you know, the fact that it has been, you know, used in ritual, you know, so there's also that. And I mean, there's also a very complicated, you know, history as well, you know, with the bodies of the ocean. But I'm kind of interested in, you know, all of those aspects of it simultaneously, and kind of, and how, you know, making space for it, we can access all of that, you know, at the same time.
All right, I think there are no questions left. Thank you so much for your conversation, Evan and Hannah. It was really inspiring to listen to you, to learn from you. You talked about joy. I think all of us in the audience agree it was a joyful evening, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. Dr. Hannah, Catherine Jones. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.